Welcome to day 5 of the story that writes back. This is Decodement and a writing session. So if you haven't joined the rest of these, here's a little overview of what these consist of. I'm doing a quick reading of a passage from my book Sozwik, and then we're going to decode it a little bit as a mirror, as a mythopoetic, archetypical, intuitive mirror that applies to all of our lives. And then a quick silent writing session together. So those are the 3 elements of this live series. And today's theme is the revelation. And you'll find out what this is about in a minute. Okay? And then Sozwik, again, for those who aren't familiar, it's a story about an extraterrestrial Sasquatch shaman who comes to Earth and finds himself in the middle of a secret spiritual war. I incorporate a lot of different themes into this book. Control versus freedom, the plight of humanity, intergalactic civilizations, other dimensions, psi and telepathic abilities, things like that. So this passage that I'm going to read today is a scene where Sozwik faces a demon. And you'll figure out, you'll see what happens, and then you'll see how it relates to what we'll talk about after. But it's Sozwik facing a demon. So I also left it kind of ambiguous whether it is simply within his mind or an actual like astral plane type of demon. That's up to you. It's up to interpretation, just like how in reality it's left that way. But you'll see a bit of parallels here. Okay, so I'm going to read this passage and then we'll decode it and I'll share with you some really interesting stuff that happened around it, and then we'll get into our writing session last. Okay. Here's where I'll start. After much exploration, Sozwik came across a door he had never seen before, deeply tucked away and shrouded in darkness. The fear that arose from just being near the door almost shook Sozwik out of his otherworldly state, but he centered himself. Manifesting a crystal sword and shield into the grips of his hardy hands, Sozwik threw the door open. It was pure blackness and smelled of gut-wrenching decay. Looks like nothing is in this horrid place, Sozwik thought. But just before a sigh of relief arose, 2 humongous red eyes appeared out of the darkness in front of him. The eyes penetrated him like poisonous daggers of fire. Sozwik was stunned as the gargantuan beast slowly moved toward him. The details of its shape were blanketed by darkness, but he could literally feel its monstrous size. The demon came excruciatingly close. Sozwik was still frozen, petrified, as his gaze was locked in the trance of the huge red eyes. A slimy limb, like a giant snake, curled around his right leg. This is surely the end, seeped out of Sozwik's stunned consciousness. Just as Sozwik had given up all hope, the voice of Goa thundered, "This is your house. Kick out that unwelcome visitor." The dark room rumbled. Exploding out of his trance, Sozwik swung his sword down and severed the tentacle at his foot. The demon was unfazed. It instantly grew the tentacle back and threw more limbs at him, like a tidal wave of repugnant flesh. Sozwik sprung into a backflip, blocking a tentacle with his shield as he was upside down in the air, and landed like the hero he knew himself to be deep down. In a burst of anger, the demon let out a terrifying, soul-shaking scream. The room shook. A rush of fear swept through Sozwik, but it didn't stick and passed over him this time. Before the scream was even over, the monster leapt into the air. Sozwik looked up at the shadowy beast with flailing limbs coming down upon him. He frisbee-tossed his shield to the side, gripped his sword in both hands, and held it steadfastly above his head as he jumped upward to meet the beast. Instead of it crushing him, Sozwik sliced straight into the demon's underbelly, through its giant head, and burst out the top like the explosion of a gruesome piñata. Sozwik's feet hit the ground again, and the room immediately transmuted into a space of golden white light. There was no trace of the beast, nor any of the heavy darkness it carried. This was the moment Sozwik knew that his deprogramming work was completed. So that was the scene, and I'll tell you one of the craziest synchronicities or signs or weird occurrences of my life based on that scene. So in this scene, Sozwik has a crystal sword, and he uses that crystal sword to jump up and puncture, right through the demon. And when he does this, the world transforms. This realm that he's in transforms into a space of pure white light, pure golden white light. Okay? So I wrote that scene in 2016. A few years ago, maybe 2-ish years ago, 2.5 years ago, I listened to a song by Aesop Rock, the rapper. He put a song out in 2020, so 3 or 4 years after I wrote this. The song he put out in 2020 is called Crystal Sword. That's the title of the song. And the very last line of this song called Crystal Sword is deeper through the death and gore, coming out the other side. It's exactly what Sozwik did, go deeper through the death and gore, coming out the other side. And the song is called Crystal Sword. When I listened to that song and realized that, it absolutely blew my mind. And I still can't even explain it. Like, how do you explain that? Either Aesop Rock read Sozwik and used that to inspire a whole song, or there was just this weird cosmic connection where we were tapping into the same archetypal theme, the same intuitive theme, and we just expressed it in slightly different forms, which I think that's the case, because I don't think Aesop Rock read Sozwik. I'd be pleasantly surprised and honored if he did, but that's just so crazy, Does anyone have any other theories or decodements of what that could mean? And when I realized this, I was also thinking about the symbolism of a crystal sword. A crystal sword could mean discernment. It's like that really sharp, empowered discernment. It's an archetypal manifestation of using your discernment. So this isn't about like fighting enemies and all that. It's symbolically using that crystal sword of discernment to cut through your shadows and come out the other side as a new version of you. It's like a rebirth, using that crystal sword of discernment. So I feel like that's a lot of the symbolism with that. And this also shows that mythopoetic expression taps into such deep levels of consciousness that we can't explain it. Because stuff like that happens. Like that crystal sword thing with me and Aesop Rock. How do you even explain that? It just shows how deep you can tap in. And just the level of themes and wisdom you can access and convey through story, through poetry. It's just tremendous, and it's amazing, and it's awe-inspiring. And that's why I'm leaning more and more into this expression. Of course, there's a time and place for prose or essays, like explaining things. But there's something truly powerful and transcendent when it comes to stories and poetry. There's a reason why mythology has been crucial for humanity. There's a reason why all religions and wisdom traditions are based around parables, stories. And really everything is a story, if you think about it. Science could be viewed as narratives, It's a narrative of exploration to try to figure out what things are, how things work. Our self-talk is a story. Society is a compilation of stories. So it's so potent and so powerful. And that's why I'm also leaning into the Soulful Writing Collective, because I want people putting out these activating stories and any writing that's activating on such a deep consciousness level to help their work spread to the right people. Okay, we'll get into the writing session, and I will give you this prompt. So, like with the other days, you can use the prompt if you want, but you can also, if you feel called to work on a project you want to work on, you feel called to, or you just feel called to write from the heart, you can do that. But I'm giving a prompt for those who want a little structure. Okay? And the prompt is, what is a synchronicity, a sign, or something that happened in your life that's kind of like an anomaly that can't be explained? It can't be explained by, let's say, like the mainstream scientific materialism paradigm, like something paranormal, something anomalous in terms of that. Like, I can't explain how that happened or why. So use that as a prompt. Write about a crazy synchronicity, a sign, or some kind of anomalous experience that you've had. And then also, along with explaining what happened, feel into the meaningfulness of it. You don't have to have like the exact logical meaning of it, but just write a little bit about the quality of meaningfulness around it. Just like intuitively explore the meaningfulness of it as well. So that's the prompt. Get out a notepad or pull up a document, wherever you want to write, and use that as a prompt. If you want, you can also do any kind of writing you feel. And we'll do 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of silent writing, and then I'll come back after 5 minutes and we'll wrap this live up. All right, see you in 5 minutes. Happy writing, happy flowing. Let's go. All right, just a few more seconds. Feel free to keep flowing if you really feel like you're in the zone, or leave yourself a note and you can come back to it. And to wrap up this session, I'm going to plug Sozwik again. If you haven't read it. There's 2 books. This is the first book. You can find them at Sozwik.com. That's where everything's at. And I'm in the beginning process of turning Sozwik into a movie as well. So there's a little information on Sozwik.com about that as well. And then there's the Soulful Writing Collective that I mentioned too. That is a community I'm putting together of conscious writers who are writing to activate the consciousness of humanity, spark self-realization. So if you write with that intention, the Soulful Writing Collective is for you. And the intention is helping each other spread our work, helping this kind of work reach who it needs to be reached, and decode each other's work. Find the deeper meaning, because we're all intuitively channeling stuff. I've read stuff from people that has blown me away. So we can decode each other's work and share what's working, what's not working, to help spread that work and activate people's consciousness on a greater level. So that's the intention. And we're just getting started. So if you join now, you have the opportunity to help shape the community as well. So that's a cool opportunity. I'll put the link to that wherever I can. And then we got 2 more days of this. So tomorrow is the theme of the integration. And then day 7, the last day, is the return. So you'll find out what those are. So see you tomorrow at the same time. Thanks everyone for joining, and much, much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you.